Well, good afternoon, everybody, and it's lovely to see so many of you here in our lawn webinar. Welcome to you all. Just a few housekeeping comments before we start, just to let you all know that the session is being recorded. So if for some reason you can't stay until the end, we will be able to make the full webinar available to you. Our process for questioning will be that you've got the Q&A button at the bottom of your toolbar. So if you think of something during Paul's presentation, just write your question in there. And then what we will do is at the end of Paul's presentation, we will go to the questions. And then as reference for any questions that you have, we're happy to take them later on. And also too, as once we get toward the end of the session, if there are other gardening related questions and we have time, we would be more than happy to speak about those as well. So I will pass over to my wonderful colleague, Paul DePuglia. For those of you who follow us on socials, you will know that we call him our Lord of the Lawns. So over to you, Paul, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Helen. Yeah, well, this is all new to me, so hopefully it all comes across pretty well. But I just thought I'd, just let you know that I am a lawn tragic, not an expert. So my love of lawn came about many, many years ago, about 40 odd years ago, when I bought my first house and had a good friend of mine that had a beautiful lawn, and I wanted a beautiful lawn like his as well. So it very quickly became a competition, and it certainly hasn't stopped. I live in a beautiful little cul-de-sac of about 8 houses. Pretty much all of them are very garden proud, and it's fair to say that there's a fair bit of competition. So nothing has changed 40 years on. It's still going very strong. I sort of learnt what I learnt just through talking to people more than anything, that have a love of lawn. And there's lots of little bits and pieces that you pick up. I follow a lot of lawn sites where there are experts on there, and you can certainly pick up a few bits and pieces from there. A little bit over my head, some of them. So for me, I just wanted to keep it as simple as I possibly could and get the best results I possibly could. So I really hope that I can sort of get them across to most people today. So I guess as a few topics, you can see there that realistically, grass type is one of the most critical things you need to know. First off, what sort of grass you've got. Most of them you can treat similarly, but some of them are a little bit different, and I'll go into that in the next slide. Climate is also very important. I mean, there's no point planting a cool season grass in Mildura, for example, where have a hell of a lot of heat. I mean, you're just never going to get the most out of your lawn. You're going to have to water it more than what you really need to. And I guess also you just got to look at positioning as well. If you've got a lot of shade, I mean, most of the warm season grasses aren't going to grow well under shade. There's some do that some don't, but you just got to identify that first, and then pick the type of turf. Also equipment, and I mean, I guess everybody has different equipment, what they can afford, what they need, what they want. I certainly remember back in my early days when I started this and a bit of a competition against my mate, I ended up going out and bought a cylinder mower, to really get on top of my game. And the cylinder mower actually cost more than the car that I was driving at the time. So
oh, wow.
it was a fair investment, but it gave me the results that I was looking at or looking for. So you've got to look at things like that, affordability, and what you're trying to achieve. And I think most importantly is really the time that you can afford to doing it. So I'm lucky enough, I don't have a big lawn area. I have 2 front and back, and it wouldn't be more than 100 square meters total. My front lawn is about 50 square meters, and I'm convinced some days when I go out there on the weekend that the neighbours have a look at me and think that I'm pretty odd, because it takes me longer to get all the equipment out of there than what it does to mow the lawn.
Oh, what a classic!
But it's as I say, you get the desired result.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just go on to the next slide and just explain a little bit about lawn types. And this is probably relevant if you're trying to select a lawn to plant, whether it be rollout or seed, but also how you treat them more than anything. And most of this would realistically refer to spring care, but it's handy to know them anyway. But things like couch and kikuyu in South Australia, they would be the two most common grasses. Santa Ana is probably the most common. That's what I have. And you can really treat it rough. I mean, come springtime, I cut it down to the dirt, scarify, low mow, cut it back so there's absolutely nothing there, and it comes back absolutely beautifully. The roots creep underground with a couch, the same as kikuyu. That'll creep underneath the ground. So again, you can treat that pretty harshly. The harsher it is, the better it comes back in general. But something like buffalo, where it's a different setup and the roots are actually creeping across the top of the lawn. So you don't want to go so harsh with that. Otherwise, you can kill it. So when you come to scarifying, you'd only lightly scarify, whereas the others you can really go heavy. All three are self-repairing, so if you get a divot or you low mow it too much, they're always going to grow back over time. As I say, buffalo not so much, but it will self-repair. Fescue is the odd one out. Obviously, cool climate grass doesn't self-repair. If you got a bit of a divot in there, you'd have to put a bit of seed in there for it to repair. Very soft, and you've got to just really treat it with a lot of care. So when you're selecting your lawn or when you're looking after your lawn, you just got to treat it accordingly, I suppose. I guess also with the buffalo, I'm in and out of Bunnings stores every day, and you can see that there is a lot of buffalo-specific products. Fertilizer is one of them, and you'll see there that on the bag it'll say, suitable for buffalo and all other lawns. So I don't know how that makes it specific for buffalo. Lawns all have the same needs. So I think one fertilizer should do the job. Ours certainly does. In the case of, weed control, you do have to be a little bit careful with buffalo. There is specific buffalo selective weed killers. So that is the difference with them. So I guess once you've, sorted out which lawn you've got or which lawn you want, as I mentioned before, you really then need to look, at what equipment you have or what equipment you want. I actually had to take a lot of stuff out of my shed to get a half decent picture. It just a lot more in there that needs to be. But you can see there I have a cylinder mower. Just out of picture, I actually have the very first cylinder mower I bought 40 years ago. Still goes strong today, but I just use that as a backup. I have the Massport, which is obviously a lot newer. For those of you who do use a cylinder mower compared to just a standard rotary, it cuts like scissors, so you just get a nice crisper cut. You also can develop lines, which a lot of people want, which is just pushing the grass to one side in one direction and the other way. So when the light shines on it, you just get that nicer finish. In the middle there, you can see my Scarify. I absolutely swear by that. For spring renovations, when you're really taking your lawn back to nothing, and just encouraging new growth, it's fantastic. But I also use that probably in the growing times every 2 weeks, and I just give it a light groom. It just stops it thickening up. It looks a little bit unsightly for a couple of days, but it repairs pretty quickly. The other thing there, the red one there, is a fertilizer spreader. I'd had a standard fertilizer spreader that I bought from Bunnings many years ago that after many years decided to pack up, and they don't sell them anymore. So I had to source a new one. That was the cheapest domestic fertilizer spreader I could find at $550. So
oh, gee.
yeah, absolutely ridiculous, but
Yeah.
it does a fantastic job. And if you want to fertilize properly and uniform, that's what you need. The other one in front of it is, I absolutely swear by that. That's just my edge trimmer. I think you can have the best lawn in the street, and if you don't trim your hedges, it just looks like absolute crap. So
Oh, totally agree.
yeah, you just waste your time. So,
Yeah.
so they're probably the four things that I use the most. And they're the things that I need to get my lawn to look the way that it does. Not everybody's going to have that or want that. You can still get a great result with some kikuyu and a rotary mower. It's still going to look fantastic. So I guess this time of year, your lawns are probably getting a little bit tired, or we've come out of a very hot, dry summer. We're only in the second week of autumn now, but the window for lawn care is certainly closing very, very quickly. So once we lose the warmth in the air and certainly the warmth in the soil temperatures drop. Whatever you do to your lawn, then you generally don't get a bigger response. So whatever you do now, you're really going to have to do in the next couple of weeks to really get your bang for buck. And just to, what I've done, and I only did it 2 weeks ago, and realistically, if you want to do what I did, you have to do it now. Otherwise, it's going to take, you might not get it to repair quick enough. But as I say, I use my scarifier to just lightly groom. So I don't go a hard scarifier. It doesn't even really take anything out. It just really teases the grass up, and then you mow over it, and you then actually, you thin it out. So you're just getting or making it thin so as you can get your nutrient and water in, which is paramount. Otherwise you're just wasting a hell of a lot of it. I would just mow the lawn as normal, but as I say, it's teased up, and where I would normally get, probably a quarter of a catcher, I'm now getting 2 catchers because I'm actually taking out that thatch buildup. Once I've done that, by doing that, you're putting your lawn under a fair bit of stress. And I find the best thing for me, I use a Seamungus product, a Seamungus liquid. I've just got it in the 2-litre RTU, clicks onto your hose. Seaweed, humates, all that sort of stuff. It's really just going to de-stress your lawn as quick as you stressed it. So I think it's a very important for recovery. So I'll do that. It visually doesn't look any different for a couple of days, but that's when I'll fertilize it a couple of days later. And what you do in de-stressing, then when you fertilize, it reacts a hell of a lot quicker because it can recover a lot quicker. So after about 2 or 3 days after I've applied the scarified and applied the Seamungus, I'll then put some sudden impact for lawns out. We recommend the sudden impact for lawns, 6 to 8 weekly. I actually do it monthly. I just find it works better for me. I'm using less more often. I don't wait for the nutrient to fall away before I pick it back up again. It's just constant. And that way it's probably a little bit of overkill, but it works for me, and I get a, fantastic green lawn, pretty much.
Well, it'd be keeping your lawns never starved of nutrition, so it can access moisture more readily, be more vigorous and resistant to any harsh conditions, wouldn't it?
Exactly right. So as I say, I mean, for me to do all of that, it probably, when I really get stuck into it, it probably takes about an hour. But just a normal mow, and during spring and summer, I'm mowing pretty much every second day. But it's 10-15 minute job to do the front and back, and that's about it. You're just whipping the tops off. You're not cutting into the crowns, and you're just keeping it looking absolutely fantastic. And you really don't put it under much stress by just whipping the tops off, and that's a critical part of it. When I do apply Sun Impact for lawns, the first thing I do is water it in with go-go juice. Go-go juice being a liquid probiotic, you're just putting all those goodies back into the soil. So as much as having a nice lawn is about lawn care, the soil that it's growing in is paramount that it's healthy. And without a healthy soil, you're not going to get a healthy lawn.
Yeah, so, definitely.
And I just keep putting that back in. I mean, as I use it monthly, I use it as often as I can, whether it be 2 weekly sometimes, whatever suits whenever I've got some time. You can never overdo it with things like that. And as I say, I mean, you'll see in the next pictures the results that I get. Bear in mind, we're not in peak season, so this is pretty current. So you can see there, it doesn't look too bad. The picture on the left
doesn't look too bad.
Well, it can look a little bit better, a little bit deeper green. So by the end of the week, that'll be a real nice deep green. But it's come up pretty nice, and you can see by that low picture there, the grass just looks extremely healthy. So you can see there the program that I did, as I just said before. I groomed it very, very lightly, and then put the Seamungus down the 2nd of March. Fertilised and watered it on the 4th of March, and another water 6th of March, and then the pictures were taken 9th of March. So the recovery, it never went brown, but it was a very light green, so it's recovered pretty well.
Do you have in-ground irrigation, or do you use a hand sprinkler?
No, what I do have in-ground sprinklers. So I use the Hunter MP rotators, meant to simulate rain. So I don't think they do. A lot of the time in the heat of summer, when I fertilise, or even when you can see that the lawns need a good water, I actually use a soaker hose. I just find it far better just to give it a nice, real deep soak, maybe once a month in the heat of summer. And the best way to test it, and I see this bandied around a hell of a lot on a lot of the forums is when people are having problems with dry spots or, just problems in general, the first thing asked is water, and sometimes they say, oh yeah, I'll water it for a good 10 minutes with a hose. Well, it's not even going to wet the surface.
No.
If you get a 10-inch screwdriver after you've watered how you normally water, and then shove it in the ground and just see how far it'll penetrate, and that'll give you a fair idea of whether you're watering
Yes.
enough. So
Yes.
9 times out of 10, lack of water is often the problem. Where are we up to? Fertilizing. So I sort of went through fertilizing there, but I guess fertilizing in general is pretty simple. I'll try to keep it pretty simple. There's lots of different products you can use, and I pretty much use two products more than anything. Sudden impact for lawns is what I use for 3 seasons of the year. Spring, autumn, and summer. As I say, I use it monthly. I'm using probably about 50 grams a square meter roughly. I always apply to a dry leaf, which is very, very critical, not just with our product, but with a lot of fertilizers. If you put it onto a wet leaf, it starts activating the goodies in the fertilizer straight away, but it doesn't have enough water to wash them in. So what it does, it burns. So if you put it on a wet leaf, you risk a fair bit of burn. So put it on a dry leaf, apply preferably with a fertilizer spreader so you get a nice even coverage, and then give it a really good water in afterwards is the best thing you can do. And I generally do follow up with another water the next day just to make sure it's all washed in. And that's really all you have to do. I mean, there's not much else you can do. I do incorporate the Sun Impact for Lawns liquid every now and then. And that's really just as a supplement. It's probably, again, more about soil health. I mean, that again is a biological input. So it's not like a lot of the liquids that you'll see in the retail stores, a lot of the lawn specialist products, which are high iron and will give you an overnight green. This will certainly give you a bit of green relatively quickly. It'll take it in through the leaf, but it's really more about getting the biology into the soil to improve the soil, improve the root growth and so on and so on. So again, the healthier soil, the healthier your lawn. In winter, again, most people wouldn't fertilize in winter, and it's probably the best time to do a bit of fertilizing. Generally, you have an abundance of water to wash it in. So, and most people would say, why would you fertilize in winter when things are going dormant, which they are, I guess, but you're not really fertilizing for visual results. You're fertilizing again for soil health and what's happening underneath the soil, which is root structure, earthworm activity, just general soil health. And while you're not going to see massive visual results, you'll see a bit of visual, but what you do in winter, you're really setting it up for your growing season come springtime. So you'll come out of that cold, wet winter and you can just carry on, and your lawns are going to respond very, very quickly to whatever you do. Same goes with garden as well. I just put a bit in there about garden. I don't have a lot of plants. I've got a fair bit of hedging there. I run the Nandina and Unanimous. I just use a Seedmongers pellet. Again, I use that monthly and just throw it out like feeding the chooks and forget it. And that's the beauty of organics. They don't burn. So, if you've got a hot day like today, let's say there was thunderstorms forecast this afternoon, if they didn't eventuate, there's no damage done. So you don't have to race out and water it. You can wait for the rain event or water at your own leisure. Won't work till it gets wet, but it won't burn either. And that's the beauty of organics. So I guess that covers pretty much a yearly program with very, very few products. We were just talking about our new product, Chock-a-Block, and which is essentially a compost. I'm just going to have a bit of a try at that at really top dressing my lawn with it come winter, just to see what sort of response. I mean, there's a fair bit of nutrient in there, organic nutrient, so it should respond relatively well. So that's just a bit of a trial at this stage. So maybe
That'll be interesting because it's going to be quite unique and it's super biologically activated.
It is. So I think
and no green waste either.
No. And I think it's just a great, gentle, organic input with a little bit of nutrient. As I say, not really designed for lawn, but you can go pretty heavy. It might look a bit unsightly at first, but I do that with an organic input as it is now, and I can keep my lawn green over winter, which is pretty hard to do with a couch. So we don't get a lot of frost, but it does go dormant. So to keep it green is fantastic.
Well, we do like to be curious and test and see what we can find and learn and
Absolutely.
discover, don't we?
Well, we do, and it's all a learning process, and
Yeah,
you don't try, you'll never know, and
exactly.
yeah, you might uncover something that might kill your lawn also, but
I won't do that.
I don't think it will. But I'm sure not everything is successful. So product wise, as I mentioned before, in spring, summer, and autumn, that's my go-to product. Sudden Impact for Lawns, I think, is one of the better lawn fertilizers that you can buy off the shelf at pretty much any retail outlet. Generally 10 kilo and 20 kilo, 50 to 100 grams per square meter. At 50 grams, a 20 kilo bag is going to do 400 square meters. So, it goes a long, long way. As I mentioned before, apply it to a dry lawn. Don't put it on wet. It's got a nice organic base, and then boosted with the trace elements. It's biologically enriched. It's then coated with another product they would do called Populate, which is full of beneficial bacteria. For prevention of disease more than anything, soil-borne disease. So it's only going to benefit your lawn. It's just, I think, one of the better all-round fertilizers. And of course, when you think about what you're trying to achieve when you fertilize a lawn, you're trying to encourage greening and leaf growth. So we also recommend Sudden Impact for Lawns for really anything non-flowering. So from a hedge to a conifer to a palm to a fern, you'll get some great results using the Sudden Impact for Lawns. You also see there in the liquid, so we bought out the ready to use that clicks onto your hose. That'll cover about 150 square meters. Again, it's designed to put some biology into your soil. There's a nice bit of nutrient in there, about 12 points nitrogen. So it's just going to give you a nice green relatively quickly. And you can actually refill it from the concentrate, the 1 litre concentrate, which is a relatively new product out late last year. The refill rate is a half a litre of the concentrate into the 2 litre bottle there, and then 1.5 litres of water. And so that'll do 150 square meters. So you'll get 2 refills, obviously, out of your 1 litre. So that really simplifies to me, or simplifies the program for me, that they're the products that you would use pretty much for 3 seasons of the year. I mentioned winter fertilizing when most people wouldn't. They're the 2 products that are readily available off the shelf. Again, they're just certified organic inputs. They're going to really do all the goodness underneath rather than on top. So, you're promoting root growth, retain moisture, which is important. But it'll also help give you a green lawn all year round, depending on your lawn type, of course. But mostly it's going to help keep it green all year round. Again, recommended application rates 100 to 150 grams per square meter. You really can't overdo it with an organic input. You could quite easily go 2 or 3 times that with more benefit and obviously no harm. I actually tip the contents on the lawn and rake it out with the back of the rake. That's how heavy I do it.
Yeah.
It looks unsightly, but I get a fantastic result, and that's all I have to do over the whole winter, really.
That's a great idea to do it that way.
Yeah. That's sort of what I was alluding to with the chocker block. It's probably more cost effective to do it with that, and similarly should get the same sort of result. So stay tuned. Well, maybe we'll post some pictures and results.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So as I say, for those that don't fertilize in winter, again, don't be disappointed by not seeing massive results. But rest assured, you're doing all the work underneath, which is probably more important than anything, come your growing seasons. And I guess realistically, by then fertilizing at least once a season, your plants and garden lawn are going to end up more resistant to pest disease, heat stress, drought stress, so on and so on. So it's pretty easy to follow. Not much time involved, not much cost either, and I think you can get some massive results.
Yeah.
Just in the biologicals, I mentioned before the Seamungus. That's where I use, when something's under stress, and with the lawns, when you scarify or low mow or something like that, you're putting it under massive stress, and that's the best way to take it out. I use the liquid product for that. As I say, you don't visually see much happening, but within a couple of days it's starting to de-stress, and you can carry on with what you normally would do. And bear in mind, you've got all those beneficial bacteria going into the soil. That's where the goodness is done. So, you put it on a healthy lawn, you're going to get a healthier lawn, put it that way.
Mm.
The Sea Mungus pellet, I just put that there. That's my go-to product for the garden. As I say, I don't have a lot of plants, but again, I just throw that out like feeding the chooks and forget it. It's just so simple to use, maximum benefit, very universal product. Great as a pre-plant, great in winter when you prune your roses, your fruit trees. Again, you're putting them under stress. The seaweed component in there will take it out of stress very, very quickly. Okay, just some tips, I guess. And one of them is it's a no-brainer, really. If your lawn is growing out of control, you really don't want to take it back too short straight away. You really, again, putting it under massive stress is going to look very unsightly. You've got no light right down to the base of your lawn, so it's going to go white pretty much. My suggestion is just cut it back slowly over a period of time, over a few mows, just drop it by a notch each time. And that way you're not putting under that stress, and eventually you'll get it down to the level that's required. When we do a lot of garden club talks, one of the most common questions I get asked is about weed control in lawns. And without using poisons, it's pretty difficult. So I always suggest that if you fertilize regularly, mow regularly, and water regularly, your lawn is going to be strong and healthy. Your root zone is going to thicken up. And over time, it's not going to happen within a week or 2 weeks, but over a period of a couple of seasons, your root zone becomes that strong that it'll strangle out the bulk of the weeds that are in your lawn.
Well, you wouldn't get many in your lawn, would
I
you?
have no weeds in my lawn
Yeah.
at all. So, and that's exactly what I do is just regular everything. I have had weeds in there, but the more I do it, the less you get. The exception to that is winter grass. There's not a lot you can do about, well, there is a lot you can do about winter grass, but it's a very shallow rooted weed. It germinates towards the top of your soil. There's a lot of ways you can prevent it. You can use a pre-emergent about this time of year to stop the seeds germinating. I've never used it. I don't know how to use it. I get down on hands and knees and pick it out. I find it pretty therapeutic, really. And again, I don't have big lawns, so it's not a big task for me. And the more often you do it, the less you get. So, I'm pretty much down to no weeds. Well, we'll see in the next.
It's amazing, actually, how many people love weeding. I am one of them.
Yeah, yep. Well, I just simply get a fork out of the kitchen drawer and I just prise them out with a fork. And, I might just go out at 20 minutes a time and just pick a bucket full. And, by at the end of a couple of weeks, it's all done. So,
Does Chris know you're doing that with your cutlery?
well, she doesn't know, no. She'll know because there's about 5 forks missing at the moment. So we'll find out eventually. But as I find it, like I say, very therapeutic, and I'll eliminate the weeds over time. I don't like using poison, so for a lot of reasons. But out the back here, I have a little bit of a weed issue. The lawn's not good out here. I've got 2 dogs at the moment. I wouldn't use a poison where a dog is, so I just wouldn't risk it. So I just put up with a few that I get and pick them out. So
yeah,
it's a lot easier way of doing it. I mentioned before about watering. I mean, deep watering, especially in really hot periods, a really deep, long, slow soak is probably the best way of watering. And as I mentioned also before, just get a screwdriver and probe your soil and just, after you water, see how far it goes down and you'll get a fair idea of whether you're getting enough water or too much water. You might find that it's waterlogged. Well, that means you're getting too much. Best to water in the morning. I always water in the morning. I know a lot of people water at night. They say there's less evaporation, which is true, but because there's less evaporation, it sits on your lawn and you can really cause some fungal issues. So I don't have any problem with fungus, and I've always watered in the early morning. It'll dry out quick enough, but the soil will stay nice and wet. So soil health, I guess, like I said, with the all the biology going in your soil, the more healthy you can make your soil, the more benefit you're going to get with anything you do. And as I say, I use a lot of the biological inputs in Go-Go Juice, Sea Mungus, Populate. There's one called Populate we do, which is more about disease suppression. But if you've got something going on in your lawn, it's the first point of call to treat it with that and see what you get from it. One of the most common problems is thatch buildup. Again, I have a lot of people at talks or a lot of phone calls that we take saying, my lawn is just not responding to fertilizing. Walk on it, it's very spongy. It's spongy because it's full of thatch, and you really need to remove the thatch. So as the water, the nutrient can penetrate it. You need to get the air in there as well. Without it, you're wasting your money and a lot of time because it just can't get in there. So, certainly dethatch, but probably more come springtime is your best time. Right now, you're at, as I say, right at the end of the window when you can do it.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to recover in time if you do it now. So I would wait
Paul,
for
I'm just
springtime.
wondering, is it worthwhile mentioning about thatch, like what it actually is?
Well, yeah, thatch is just that dead organic matter underneath your lawn canopy. So it just builds up over time, and it's just dead organic matter which you really need to get out of there. So a scarifier will just essentially pull it out of there. My 50 square meter lawn, when I scarify that in springtime, I always do it October long weekend. I always get a trailer load of scarifyings out of it. That's how much
That's
dead
unreal.
matter. Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
incredible, and I keep it relatively thin. So other people would probably have more of a problem. Without doing that, you're just always going to have a problem with disease, with a lot of things. So I think it's paramount to having a good lawn is just less thatch. One of the other things, excuse me, and it is a problem without really knowing a problem is drainage. I know I have a problem with drainage in my back lawn, and is just because of poor preparation. Where I really prepared the front lawn properly, the back lawn nobody sees it, so I didn't really worry too much about it, and simply turned over the dirt that was there. I'm talking 20 odd years ago, but I'm certainly paying for it now. I have a lot of problems with it because of that. I aerate as much as I can. It's only a little area, so I do it with a garden fork, and that helps. But every second year I will core aerate with a coring machine, and that's just taking plugs out of your lawn. I'll then top dress it with a sand just to fill those plugs up, and that'll just allow the nutrient to get in, the water to get in, the air to get around. You just end up with a lot happier and healthy lawn. So drainage issues, are going to let the water sit in your soil, and again, it's just going to cause more problems than anything else. So, lastly, just sort of throw this in here. We have a lot of high-profile sites around Australia that use our products, not just the lawn products, but there's a few there. Botanic gardens. There's 3 botanic gardens in South Australia. All use wholly and solely Neutrog products. They use Sun Impact for lawns. On their lawn areas. Carrick Hill, fantastic garden, beautiful lawn.
Isn't it? Mm.
It is magnificent, all Neutrog products. And I guess our key one, Flemington Racecourse. I mean, showcased all around the world in November. You see there with a bag of Sudden Impact. I don't know how you did that, Ellen, but very, very clever. So, I think really that gives any consumer some peace of mind that you can see, places of that note that use our products. So it's going to give you a fair bit of confidence that that they're going to work. So I think we'll just open it up for questions, I guess.
Yeah. Paul, that was absolutely awesome.
Thanks,
Like,
Ellen.
we've both been in horticulture a long time, and to me, what I particularly personally find fascinating is the knowledge that you know a lot, but you realise that there's so much more that you can learn, and I've just found that absolutely fascinating.
Oh, that's
So
excellent.
thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So we've got quite a few questions here, so I'll go to them in order. The first question is from Megan, and she's moved into a house, and she'd like to know, how does she identify what type of lawn she has?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess take a picture, and you can post it to a lot of different lawn forums online. Failing that, just cut a little piece out and take it into your garden centre. It's probably the easiest. They'll be able to identify it straight away. And 9 times out of 10, it'll be either a cooch or a buffalo, but they'll be able to identify it very, very simply.
Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, actually, we've got Hazel would like to answer this question live. So shall I throw to you, Hazel?
No, Helen, sorry, I was just marking off that we were answering that question live.
Oh, okay. Beg your pardon.
No
Now,
worries.
Megan also has another question. Do you recommend using turf or seeding when you're establishing a new lawn?
But for me, that's an easy question. I'd just go roll out turf every day.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's dependent on a lot of things too. I mean, if you've got a massive area, sometimes it's not going to be practical. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So,
Mm.
you're probably going to have to go seed. But just for ease of everything, it's a quick preparation. It's a quick install, and you've got an instant lawn pretty much. So, so if it's a practical area, I would go roll out turf every day.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably worth touching on if you're new to and you wanted to put down instant turf. How do you actually measure up how many rolls of turf that you need for your garden?
Well, you're the expert in that, Helen. Maybe you can answer your own question. So.
Well, we just thought we might throw a funny story in here. So I worked in a retail garden centre for over 15 years, and I ordered probably truckloads of instant turf for my customers. And the way you do that is it's particularly if you've got an area that's a different shape, that you put it onto a metre square piece of graph paper and you map it out and you count up your squares. So my husband and I were putting in a new front lawn at a home we'd bought, and it was a bit of a figure 8 in shape. And so I measured it all up and I counted all the little bits where it overlapped, and you had little half and quarter bits of squares, and I allowed a few extra rolls and ordered it. Anyway, when it arrived, I was in Melbourne on radio, and I get home a couple of hours later and my husband, father-in-law and brother-in-law are there shaking their heads and giving me the hardest time because I had short ordered our turf and I had forgotten my husband had changed the dimensions somewhat. So it took me many years to live that one down, even though I feel it was my husband's fault rather than mine. But that's pretty much the way you work out how much instant turf that you do need.
Fantastic.
So who else have we got? Oh, Paul. Hi, Paul. Look, thanks so much for your question. Paul would like to know, do you mow in the same direction every time like farmers' tram lines, or do you mow in various directions?
Well, that just depends how adventurous I feel. But I mowed the other day on the diagonal. So, yeah, no, I do change the direction every now and then, but generally one direction, and you can see that starts to burn the lines in. So I do change it up a bit just to flatten it out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah.
Yep. So there's somebody who would like to know, is Seamungus and Rooster Booster for lawns sold in WA? So we can both tell you that yes, it is available in WA.
Yep.
And if you need help finding your closest stockist, don't hesitate to jump on our 1800 number or one of our inquiry emails, and we can direct you to your closest store. Kerry, thank you for your query. Kerry would like to know, she's going to be trialling Chock-a-Block on her lawn in winter. Oh, that's really cool.
Excellent.
So Paul, what rate are you thinking of using? Kerry would like to know.
Yeah, I don't really have a rate. So what I would do is the Chock-a-Block will come in a bale. I don't know whether you're familiar with Who Flung Dung, but it comes in a bale very similar to Who Flung Dung, 25 kilos, roughly about 100 litres. So I would simply just undo the bale, scatter it out around the lawn, with the rake, and just with the back of the rake, just rake it until you can see the tops of the grass popping out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So it's not really a rate. It's just an area that you're going to cover. Yeah. So one bale will go a fair way though on a lawn. My 50 square meters, I imagine 2 bales would be absolutely ample.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Now we have another attendee who's made the comment. Paul, you've mentioned scarifying in October. How often and when do you scarify? And they're asking also about hiring a scarifier. So is that something that you can do?
You can do. You can hire a scarifier. All the hire companies, they have the scarifiers, Coates hires and things like that. You get a scarifier from them. I used to hire one from them with a few blokes, close by. We always used to go thirds or quarters, whatever it might be. Yeah. Same with a plugger as well. I bought my own scarifier, which I have now. I start my spring renovation, we'll call it, always on the October long weekend. usually it's, we're getting enough consistent warm weather by then. Long weekend gives me plenty of time to do it. So I'll scarify then. I'll low mow, I'll fertilise, I'll top dress if it requires. I don't top dress very often. I don't see the need to.
Yeah.
And I would then do that probably another 2 times, from October till pretty much now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does build up thatch relatively quickly. And then I would groom it, which is a very light scarified, probably 3 or 4 times in amongst that as well.
Okay. And that person would also like to know, is a scarifier the same as a verti mower?
They're very similar. The verti mower is just going to give you a lot closer cut. I would go a scarifier rather than a verti mower. They're very, very harsh. They'll leave a lot of lines in your soil as well, which are very hard to get rid of over
Oh,
time.
okay.
They will disappear,
Yeah.
but they do the same job. They're just one's more severe than the other.
Yeah. Yeah. So Celia has made an inquiry. So thank you for your question, Celia. Celia has a Santa Ana lawn with a fungal problem, and the fungal problem covers an area that's about 1.5 meters wide. The lawn has a deep thatch. How should she treat it at this time of the year? And Celia is in the Adelaide Hills.
It should be a Woodside, I'd say. So,
Okay.
I know, Celia. Right now, it's probably the worst time to do anything wholly and solely because you just don't know what the weather's going to do. I think you'd be pretty safe now. In a case like that where you've only got a small area, what I'd do is just treat that area. And what I would do, I'd just get the lawnmower out. I would mow it down as low as you possibly can get, just in that area. Put a little bit of sudden impact on there, give it a good water in, and just see the recovery. If it recovers well, you know that that's your problem, and then I'll wait till October next year before I did the whole lawn. No,
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
Thank
no
you.
point doing the whole lawn now. So
Okay, thank you, Paul. Megan has another question. She said, should we be using Populate at this time of the year? And if so, how do you use it? And in particular, when? Like probably frequency, Paul.
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult to answer that one because of what it is. It's it's realistically it's designed for disease suppression, soil-borne disease suppression. So realistically, you would use it when you know you've got a problem with something. So even go back to Celia, that's probably a good one to put in that fungal area too. So put the sudden impact out, but water it in with Populate. So in a garden situation, we would say to use the Populate at least seasonally. And there's 2 ways you can use it where you know you've got a problem. So if you've got a fungal issue in your lawn, if you've got a tree that you've transplanted that's just not kicking on, you can use it in those sorts of situations, or you can use it on a completely healthy garden, really as an insurance policy against disease. So you're not necessarily going to see any results in that case, but it's going to do the work underneath. And realistically, the way that it works, if you're using it on something that does have a problem, and let's just say it's got some, I don't know, let's just say Phytophthora, Helen, for the way that it works, it's an inhibitor. So the beneficial bacteria, once they go into the soil, are going to multiply. They're going to find the affected zone, and they're really going to push the pathogens out. So it'll just take them away from where the affected zone is, and it's going to cure your problem. So in answer to the question, I would just use it at least seasonally, but you could use it monthly if required, if you know you've got a problem. So
it's a really unique product. It's an incredible product, actually.
Yeah. Just on that, Helen, before we go on, when we first released that, New South Wales were under flood pretty much. That's going back about 4 years ago now. And I was doing a lot of work over there then and take a lot of phone calls from New South Wales. And a lot of people were losing plants because they were simply drowning, I guess. I can remember vividly being at the Camellia Illawarra garden group, and we got rained in. I couldn't get out. There was just, that much rain. And a guy there told me about 3 exotic cherry trees that he had. I can't remember exactly what they were, but he said, I've lost 2 of them and the third one's looking like it's about to go. What can I do? And I said, look, there's no guarantees, but try Populate, explain what it does, the beneficial bacteria, blah, blah, blah. He tried it, and without a word of a lie, 3 weeks later, he rang me and he said, the two that I thought I'd lost are showing signs of growth, and the third one's looking absolutely fantastic.
Oh,
So
isn't that cool?
it just really shows what it can do in
Yeah.
that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Microbes they're fascinating, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, for those of you who are in the webinar, we've still got some time for a few more questions. So if you've got any general gardening questions that you would like to ask Paul or I, or any questions about our product range, we would be absolutely delighted to answer them. And so while people are perhaps thinking what they might like to ask us, Trevor made a comment that the webinar has been exceedingly helpful. So we're really, really pleased that you've found it of, so much use, Trevor. So thank you very much for your kind comment.
Good on you, Trevor.
Yeah. So what else have we got here? Now we talked about turf versus seed. I was thinking it's probably worth touching on how you would water both of them, watering turf in after laying it versus watering seed.
I've never laid seed, so I don't really know. But with a rollout turf, rule of thumb is that you water at least initially 3 times a day, morning, midday and evening. You just got to keep it moist just so as you keep the roots alive and they can then establish relatively quickly. I would say in the case of seed, it would be no different really. So you're wanting to keep the seed moist so as they can germinate. So I think once you've got germination, you can start backing it off. The same as once you know that your roots have taken in your rollout, you can back it off a little bit.
When I used to sell, because it was a very large nursery I worked at, and we sold a lot of seed as well as a lot of turf. And people, sometimes you get people wanting to put seed down as you're getting into the warmer weather. And that's certainly something that you can do, but it's critical to keep in mind that cannot dry out at any stage during that germination process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, as you just said, Paul, once it has up, it's coming up, and you can maybe put a sprinkler on it or put your soaker hose on like you do.
Yeah.
Well, then, you can leave it on for longer, and, it's not such, but it's really important because seed can start to germinate. And then if it dries out for half a day, it will shrivel up and die. And you'll just think the seed hasn't grown. And that's not the case at all. It's simply that it's dried out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Paul, we do have a few more. We've got a comment from Celia again. She said, absolutely fabulous webinar and great slides. So that's so lovely to hear. Thank you for that, Celia. And also, Celia would like to know, are there any tricks or difficulties associated with scarifying a lawn effectively?
Oh, not really. No, it's a pretty straightforward process. I guess it depends how thatchy it is, as you may not be able to take it down in one well, we'll call it a mow. It's not a mow, but you might have to do it a few times, in that same day. I do that with mine. I'll do it once, I'll then mow, and then I'll do it again and mow. So probably about 3 times all up. It can be relatively time consuming, very messy, but at the end of the day, very, very beneficial as well. So once you've done it once, you'll know how to do it and how best to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably worth mentioning here too, for any of you who would like further information, like we can make this recording of this webinar available to you, but please don't ever hesitate to come to us. We have the 1800 number, which is 1800-656-644. We have an info email, so it's info@neutrog.com.au, and you can speak to the staff at our head office and they can help you, or they would be more than happy to transfer you through to Paul or myself, or any of our colleagues for that matter. So Paul, we've got another couple of questions. Angus would like to know, do any of these products go off, or are they less effective when they've been kept in a hot shed over a period of time?
I guess he's referring to the liquids more than anything, but I guess the liquids can go off. Yeah, so we recommend that you store them under 30 degrees. So in a hot shed out the back is probably not ideal. Maybe keep them in the laundry or something like that. If that's the case, they'll last for a long, long time. I remember we had some go-go juice returned to us after, I think it was 7 years. It had been sitting in somebody's shed, and we did some tests just to see what was in there. Certainly all the bacteria wasn't alive, but there still was a fair portion of it was. So,
Well, it had only lost about 35% of its
yeah,
efficacy, if
yeah,
I recall
yeah,
correctly.
yeah. And I
So
guess,
that's
yeah,
spectacular.
it is. And at the end of the day, it's always going to have a benefit. It may not just be the maximum benefit. So
Yeah.
you certainly won't do any harm with it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the same goes for the pelletized products. I mean, if they're kept dry, they're fine. You know, you can use
Yeah.
them forever, really.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Another person would like to know, how do they prepare for a new lawn, and should they fertilize straight away?
No.
Great question.
Yeah. So it is a great question. So I think preparation is the key. So for me, and my experiences are, as I mentioned before, that I did no preparation with my back lawn, and I'm really paying for it now.
Yeah, yeah.
My front lawn, I had 400 mil of clay removed and 400 mil of quality tops put in, irrigation put in, nice rollout turf. And it is just absolutely fantastic. I have very little problem with it. I would put in fact, I use Seamungus pellets as a pre-plant. So I just threw them out like feeding the chooks before I rolled the turf out. I then rolled the turf out, and I didn't fertilise for probably a good month. I just really let it get settled in, and then I just gave it a very light organic fertiliser about a month later. And I laid it, I think, on the October long weekend many years ago. And I didn't fertilise it with anything substantial till probably after Christmas from memory.
Yeah.
And again, it was at half strength, and it was just enough to give it a nice green finish.
Yeah.
But it was very healthy underneath. So
Yeah.
obviously whatever I did responded very well.
Yeah. Well, I remember it would be, I think, probably 3 years ago. So it's probably around November 21.
Yep.
Mick Ryan, who's the head of gardening at Flemington Racecourse, so he's in charge of the mounting yard and, the roses and everything pretty much except the track. So Mick rang me up and he said, we're renovating the mounting yard as soon as the spring carnival's over. And Mick took a heap of bounce back, which is our base pelleted poultry manure, and that turf, like you would think a week later it had been there forever. It just looked incredible.
Yeah.
But it's like anything, it's not stinting with preparation. It's even like, even when you're baking, weigh your ingredients. Or if you're using, if you're potting up something, use a great potting mix. Don't stint, and then you'll get the really, really good results.
Yeah, well, I guess your output's only as good as your input, isn't it?
Absolutely. Trevor would like to know, they're remodeling their new home, having removed shrubs and roots, and they plan on planting roses. They have just purchased a bucket of sudden impact for roses, which they intend to water in before planting in June, July, and they're planting standards. So would you like to address that, Paul, or?
I would, yeah. I wouldn't use your sudden impact for roses in that situation. I think you're not going to do any damage. You're really just wasting some money. So I would use Seamungus, or even Chock-a-Block's going to be available to you then. Probably use both, to tell you the honest truth. So I would buy the Chock-a-Block compost and dig that through your soil. And then at planting time, I would put a handful of Seamungus pellets in the hole, backfill slightly, you plant in, a little bit around the top, and away you go. That's really all you need to do. And for probably a good 3 months, I would imagine. Once they're really well established, once you can see that they're established, that's when I'd give them a sudden impact for roses.
Yeah, and start that and follow a feeding program every 8 weeks. So pop something out seasonally, and that's where you'll get that vigor, resistance to pest and disease. And, importantly, what you want is lots and lots of beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
Kerry comments, she says it's been a really great seminar, taken heaps of notes, so thanks to you and I. Kerry, I'm just thrilled you've enjoyed it so much, and I'm sure Paul is as well. So thank you for that kind comment. Paul would like to know, how often would you plug a lawn?
Probably every second year. Really as required, but I know a lot of people do it annually, and I just think it's too often. I don't think you need to, but yeah, I would say probably 2 years that would be the absolute minimum. And I would probably do it, yeah, probably 2 to 3 years, something like that.
It's something satisfying about you know, putting your foot onto the tool and then all the little
Yeah,
plugs pop
yeah.
out, isn't there?
It is very satisfying, yeah.
Karen would like to know, can you refill the 2 litre go-go juice hose on from a 1 litre bottle like you do with Sudden Impact for Lawn? So yes, you can, Karen. So what you do is pop 500 ml of concentrate into your 2 litre ready to use. Fill it up with water, so that's another 1.5 litres. Gently agitate it, and then it's at the correct dilution to break down. Keep in mind, though, when you're using go-go juice or populate in the RTUs, make sure that you are using a container that's had a similar product in it. So you wouldn't go putting the go-go juice into, say, a 2 litre that's had the Sudden Impact for Lawns in, because that has a chemical component to it. And if you're using the lawns and the go-go together, you need to break down the chemical component prior to adding the lawns. So Frank said, great show. Do you use sulfate of ammonia in April?
No, no, I use a complete fertilizer, Sudden Impact for Lawns. That's all you need. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you start messing around with individual ingredients, always, so it's a little bit like a golf swing. You'll overcorrect, undercorrect, and you'll just be in a worse place than where you started. So that's why we make fertilizers. They're very well balanced. It's got everything in there you possibly need. And get great results that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and those sort of products are massively high. They're probably sulfate ammonia could have anywhere up to 40, 50 points of ammonia in it. Yeah. And very, very little of that's going to be available to your lawn, because it's just simply that can't take it all in and it becomes locked up.
Yep, exactly. So
Deborah has said she recently laid the Nara zoysia on my street frontage. It faces a northeast direction and gets a fair amount of sun, and Deborah is in southeast Queensland. She's had patches of dead grass appear. They're not lawn grubs, as she's checked for that, and she's wondering if it's a nutrient deficiency or lack of water. So thank you for that. Is the zoysia is the tufty sort of grass, isn't it, Paul?
It is. I'm not overly familiar with it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to say without seeing it, but the chances are it's if they're dead patches, maybe not nutrient deficient, there might be something going on. Usually when you get a discoloured patch, that's when it's a nutrient deficiency. I would say it's probably water more than anything. So again, just try that penetration with a screwdriver in a good area and a bad area, and that'll soon tell you. So yeah.
And I reckon I'd be popping some populate onto that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we've got time for maybe another couple of questions. Alan would like to know, he says, hi, Paul, what feedback has Neutrog had with the new chock-a-block? My block I used around a standard maple, which helped a second flush of leaves and also helped beat the heat.
Fantastic.
Oh, okay. So I think what Alan's saying is that, he's had a great result using it. So that's awesome to hear.
Oh, that's good. I must say that I've spoken to a lot of people that managed to get hold of the trial bales, and I guess we haven't had that much feedback yet. I don't think everybody takes them home and uses them straight away, but having said that, I have had quite a bit of positive feedback. I've used some myself, and I've got 4 very mature ficus. I think you can see one right behind me there. That's the one that I applied the chock-a-block to. So actually, the potting mix in there is just run out of puff. So I put in about 5 handfuls of chock-a-block only on that one there, and you can see the difference with that one to the others. So it's gonna be a fantastic product. It really is.
Trevor's a character. He's also made the comment golf swing and fertilizing in the same sentence. Wow. Pretty impressive. And Trevor, a good potting mix is anything which has got the premium ticks on it. Never, ever, ever, ever stint on potting mix.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably just a very quick question. What are your recommendations for preparing an area and the soil is ready for new turf installation?
If it's ready for new turf installation now, again, I would simply mix some chock-a-block through. So that'll be available in the next week or two. If you're rolling out the soil or whatever, or trying to get it nice and even, once you've done that, I would just use Humongous pellets as a pre-plant. Just throw that out like feeding the chooks. Roll your turf out, maybe water in with some go-go juice, and it's really all you need
Yeah.
to do for
Yeah.
realistically, you're going to be
Yeah.
well into autumn by then.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of organics through winter, and that's about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll just conclude. Alan's made a comment that he's going to be trying sudden impact for lawns on a couple of his bonsais, and
Okay.
he'll let us know what happens. So, Alan, I'm sure if you're a bonsai expert, you know to use a very, very small amount.
Yeah.
But thank you. We really, really look forward to hearing how that goes, and a couple of before and after photographs would be very much appreciated, because I think our Pooh Bar Club members would love to hear about that as well. And again, if anyone has any questions, please come to our website, our 1800 number. That's what we're here for. We really, really love working with you all. And as I said earlier, learning and discovering what's going on in the world of horticulture and microbiology. So thank you all. And Paul, you have been amazing. Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much.
Thank you very much. Good on you.
Thank you.
Thank you. How do I get out of here, Helen?